you're shopping for an e-bike and you're wondering the price, what kind of price should you pay? It's a very confusing question because there's a lot of different prices of electric bikes in the market. Price of an electric bike can vary vastly from $400 on Walmart.com and Amazon all the way up to $10,000, $12,000. A lot of factors play into the pricing of an e-bike. Number one, there's the actual product itself, right? You've got, these are the 630 e-bikes I have right here. Many factors like the size of the battery, the size of the motor, the type of bike it is, the materials the bike are made with. You can have electric bike motors up to 1,000, 2,000 watts. Really depends. Also, an e-bike meant for off-road versus on-road, totally different. Costs are gonna be totally different because you're gonna have certain needs. There's also different types of motors. There's a mid-drive mount motor, a rear hub motor. There's price discrepancies there as well. First thing to consider is how are you gonna use your electric bike? Are you gonna be using it for short rides, long rides, 10 miles, 20 miles? And then also, what are your speed needs? Do you not care about going super fast? Do you want to go really fast? Are you going to be going up mountains on a mountain bike? Let's just say you're going to ride no more than 20 miles in any given ride. You're going to ride primarily on flat ground. And let's say you're an average weight rider, somewhere 250 to 150 in weight. That situation, I would say you could spend anywhere from $500 to $2,000. If you're looking to go up mountains, do mountain biking, honestly, you're gonna have to spend north of $2,500 for something that's gonna perform well with steep hills. To go up mountains, to go off-roading, you're probably gonna need at least 750 watts of power, if not more. And so I say north of 250 watts because also depending on the brand you choose, the service they provide, that's going to elevate the price. Now, let's say you want to go longer range. Let's say you want to do over 20 miles a ride and you still want to do mostly flat ground, maybe some hills, and you're an average rider. In that situation, you're going to probably want to look no less than $1,000. I would say no less than even $1,200. The reason I say that is the battery size is going to dictate how much you pay for an e-bike. Typically, the smaller or the less expensive an e-bike, the smaller the battery is going to be. I can tell you, like, for the bikes I've seen that are $300, $400 for e-bikes, it's gonna be a very small battery, most likely won't even last 20 miles. So if you're gonna be out doing adventures on your e-bike and you wanna go 30, 40 miles, I'd recommend spending no less than $1,200, really up to $3,000, $3,500 then, because you're gonna get bigger batteries, you're gonna get better controllers, which dictates the power output from the battery to the motor. And it's going to be more efficient. It's just going to perform better overall. So when you start to get into these longer distances, you want to make sure you're getting an e-bike that can perform, the battery can last, and you're going to get the kind of distance out of the e-bike that you want. Now, in addition to that, if you are a heavier rider, let's say over 250 pounds, over 300 pounds, you're also going to want to spend probably more than $1,200. Reason being is you're going to want a bigger battery and you're going to want a bigger motor, because when you get into heavier riders, the weight of the rider is going to impact the performance, not only of the motor, but especially the battery. It's going to drain the battery quicker. So you may want to consider spending a little bit more money so you get a battery that can last and really support your weight, help you ride longer distances. And also you want a motor size that can move you up the hills if you should have hills, or just get you going to the speeds that you really require. Cost of a product isn't just about the componentry, it's about many other things like the support that a brand offers you, the warranty a brand offers you, return windows factor in, because all of these optional services and add-ons that a brand would offer you add costs. If you're looking for an electric bike in a $400 to $700 range, the assumptions I would make is you're gonna have a company that's not gonna offer great support. There's not gonna be a large customer service team backing them up. They're not gonna be great on warranty parts. They're not gonna have a very liberal return window. And generally speaking, you're gonna be on your own. If that product works and you don't have issues, it'll be a gem. If you do have issues, that could be where you all of a sudden run into trouble, right? If you need parts, you need things like that. Now, if you're looking for something in the $700 to $1,000 range, a lot of the principles I just talked about will be true. However, As you get closer to that $1,000 range, there are some really reputable brands out there that make a good product for $1,000, stripped down, bare bones e-bikes. We are currently offering some of our e-bikes for $1,000, and there's service available and they should be good. Now, as you go up in price, the commitment of the brand is always gonna go up to that consumer, right? I would just say, what is most important to you? What are you looking for? And what are your needs as a rider? Now, when you start to get into that $1,000 to, I'm gonna say $2,000 range, that is really a sweet spot where you've got a lot of reputable brands that have good service, they stand behind their product, they have decent return windows, you can get a hold of them, and you can feel rest assured that the bike you purchase, you'll be able to get some level of service if you have any issues going on in the time of your ownership. So in the $400 to $700 price point, it's about cost. It's about finding the components that will do the job and keep the product in that $400 to $700 range. When you get over $1,000, the priorities are different. It's how do we use specs and use elements on this bike that are going to last, that are going to signify quality. It's going to go towards building a bike that a consumer can have for years and years and years, and the brand wants to stand behind it. There is a commitment of that company to build a brand. Building a brand on the lower spectrum of a consumer product price is very difficult for companies. $1,000 to $2,000 is a good sweet spot price for e-bikes. Now, if you go above that, $2,000 and up, most likely you're gonna be looking at some of the best components, the best cells in your battery, the best motors, the best of everything. And that's why the prices are gonna go up. Companies that are producing, e-bikes north of $2,000 have a vested interest in putting products out there that they'll always stand behind. Now at 630, we are a brand-driven company. We want to stand behind our brand. We offer service, replacements, customer service on all the bikes we produce. We have a full team of people that are constantly answering the phones. But coupled with that, we are also about value. So it's the blending of how can we give the best possible product with the best possible components without driving costs through the roof. Because the majority of consumers are not going to be out there spending north of $2,000 on electric bikes.
Today we're going to talk about what are the costs of owning an e-bike. Costs of owning an e-bike are actually very similar to just owning a normal bike. A lot of the costs associated with a bike revolve around your usage. How frequently are you riding? What type of riding are you doing? And that drives the cost of ownership, just because you're going to require more maintenance or replacement parts, things of that nature. A standard sort of bike ownership costs to expect, maybe $100 a year max. If your riding is very limited, $100 every 2-3 years. And that $100, in my opinion, is for a full tune-up. Now that price can depend on the bike shop in your area you live in. A full tune-up could be less than that, maybe $69.99, maybe more than $100. So I would say cost of ownership of a normal bike, maybe once a year, once every 2 year, full tune-up, greasing, the whole 9 yards. E-bikes, same thing. Now e-bikes, typically they have obviously the functionality of a normal bike. So depending on how often you're using it, how often you're wearing things down, you're gonna wanna do that tune-up probably every 12 to 24 months. In addition to that, however frequently you're riding your e-bike, you may need to do things like replace the brake pads every year or sooner. If you're riding very frequently or you're riding downhill and you're braking a lot, you may wear those brake pads down pretty frequently. Now, depending on if you have a disc brake or caliper brakes with the pads, most e-bikes have disc brakes. Buying a new wheel for that, anywhere from $20 to $50 depending on the quality. If you need the rotor, the brake pads themselves, anywhere from $5 to $30 to replace those. Generally, those things don't go out very frequently, but maybe once a year, like I said, but totally dependent on how much you're riding. Now, for sort of the e-bike specific things, battery and motor, on the battery side, depending on the quality of e-bike that you have and the battery that you have, I could foresee having to replace the battery every 2 years, maybe every 3 years. These are like laptops, they're like cell phones. These lithium ion batteries don't last forever. And you can do things like manage the charging, not overcharge, not undercharge, which is going to help prolonging the lifetime of the battery. But I think a good expectation of ownership of an e-bike is to have to replace that battery every 2 years, every 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And the cost of that's going to range depending on the bike you have and the battery size. It's going to be about $200 to $500. Now, again, if you're only riding your e-bike once a week, you won't need to replace that battery, but for every 5 years, 4 years. Other than that, I mean, there's not a lot of crazy costs associated with owning an e-bike.
If you have any more specific questions, please comment below or email us, the team at sixthreezero.com, or you can always call us 310-982-2877. And if you don't know what e-bike is right for you, take our proprietary body fit quiz, answer a few questions about your body and your life. In a few minutes, you'll have the perfect bike recommended for you. And we have a 30-day test ride your e-bike policy. If you don't love your e-bike in 30 days, send it back, no questions asked, no money out of your pocket.